Yeah. I might.
Right.
I'll have to.
We allow live
Recording now.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, members. Good evening, members of the public. Good evening, the public who's on the YouTube. Welcome to the Planning Applications Committee, 17th June. Firstly, Mr. Scott, can we have the fire instructions, please?
Thank you, Chairman. There'll be no fire drill tonight. The fire alarm is a loud continuous ring. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the building promptly and calmly using the stairs next to the lift if possible. The fire escape in the council chamber should only be used as a last resort. Do not stop to gather personal belongings and do not use the lift. The evacuation point is at street level in the Knoll Road car park. The assembly point is indicated by a green sign. Do not leave the assembly point until you are told it is safe to do so. And lastly, if you have reduced mobility and the fire alarm rings, please make yourself known to myself.
Thank you very much. Apologies, please.
I have apologies, Chairman, from Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Deitch is subbing for him. And I've also received apologies from Councillor Victoria Wheeler and Councillor Emma Jane McGrath is subbing for her.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Emma Jane, for coming along. Are you agreeable that I sign the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Declarations we'll deal with on each item, which takes us through to the first item on the agenda, which is on page 9, and it is number 39, Chertsey Road, Windlesham. Are there any declarations on this item, members? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor McGrath.
Just to say that I have a business in Middlesham as well. So some of the residents' children that do go there do come into my shop.
Lovely, thanks very much. Sorry, I didn't see you waving at me. And now we, Miss Tauricio, please, on the screen.
Thank you, Chair.
You're rather ahead of yourself there.
I am. I'm in the right place now. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. The application at number 39 Chertsey Road seeks to change the use of this area here outlined in red from residential to a children's play area to serve the existing nursery here at number 41. Currently, the site is actually a part of the residential curtilage of number 39. The number of children attending the nursery would be retained as existing, and the access to the play area would be through the building. The application site is located in Windlesham, near the junction between Chertsey Road here and School Lane. The surrounding area is residential in nature. The site is adjacent to number 39 to the west here, which contains an outbuilding that's adjacent to the common boundary with number 41. Number 43 sits here beyond School Lane, And to the north, it's Sunray, and this you see here. It's an outbuilding, it's a garage that belongs to the property. This area here is a substation. The application follows a similar scheme which was refused in the past, as the noise mitigation measures would be considered to harm the character of the area. In comparison with this previous scheme, the acoustic fence has been reduced in height from 2.5 meters to 2 meters. The proposed number of children using the garden at one time has also been reduced from 25 to 20, and the outdoor play times have been restricted. Here you can see the nursery building, which is this white building here, and the area that would be subject to the change of use is the garden area here. Here on the background is the outbuilding that belongs to number 39, and this is the substation. This photograph here once more shows the site area that would be subject to the change of use, and this is the outbuilding that belongs to Sunray. The proposal would see both plots numbers 39 and 41 reverting back to their original shapes and be in keeping with the character of the area. The applicant has submitted a noise assessment that is supported by environmental health and subject to the planning conditions which are detailed on pages 15 and 16 of the committee papers. Condition 3 requires the installation of an acoustic fence on the boundaries shown in red here. Along School Lane, the fence would measure approximately 6.5 meters in length, and it would be located between Sunray and the substation here. School Lane is green in character, and with soft landscaping being provided to screen the fence, as per condition 6, it is considered the proposal would integrate into the surrounding character. Subject to further planning conditions restricting the number of children in the garden at one time, the hours of use, and climbing frames, the proposal would not give rise to undue noise. As the proposal would not increase the number of children attending the nursery, it would not result in additional car movements. Subject to the conditions detailed in the committee papers, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now we have two public speakers on this item, and the first one is Mr. Karras. Mr. Karras.
Good evening.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Karras. I hear you but can't see you. But just to reiterate, you will have 4 minutes to speak from the time when you start, and you'll be advised when there is 1 minute left. The time will start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Edward Karras. I reside at 43 Chertsey Road, so the property the other side of School Lane from the nursery. I am still objecting to the planning application on the basis of two primary concerns. Firstly, the application contains no detail on the type or height of fencing to the north and west sides of the electricity substation. The application specifically only details the requirement for noise reducing fencing on the other three sides of the proposed play area. Without the detail of what fencing is to be installed around the substation, there is currently direct line of sight from the majority of the proposed play area towards 43 Chertsey Road. I'm therefore concerned that the noise from the play area will directly impact my house. Specifically, I'm concerned for the potential for the sound from the play area to impact my main bedroom, be reflected off the uneven pebble dash surface that we have on our house downwards onto our patio area. And as I work from home and regularly use the outside space under a canopy, I won't be able to continue working outside when I wish to. There will be a direct path from the play area to 47, which is at an elevated height versus our property, and therefore could be more impacted, and reflected back off the rear wall of the nursery towards sunray over the top of the fencing, the noise reducing fencing. Secondly, in connection with the noise reducing fencing, obviously with the latest application, the height of that fencing was reduced from 2.5 to 2 meters. From reading the noise reports that were submitted for the previous application and this current one, it was, even with the number of children reduced from 25 to 20, the starting predicted noise level at what they call the NSR, which I think is the noise, the first point they measure the noise at, from a range of 62 to 65 decibels, only down by 1 decibel to a range of 61 to 64. Further, the June 2020 report clearly recommended a 2.5 meter high fence on the basis that that would reduce the noise level to an acceptable level, whereas a 2 meter fence would only reduce it to 50 to 53 decibels, which is a moderate impact to residents. The January 21 report.
1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Thank you. The January 21 report recommends that the predicted noise level range would further drop to 45 to 48 decibels, which is an incremental drop of 5 decibels for a reduction of only 1 decibel in the starting noise level. And therefore I'm concerned about the validity of that. I am pleased to note the additional conditions that have been included since the consultation around the no elevated play equipment, specific hours, and the maximum number of children. As a previous school governor of an infant school in Virginia Water, I am clearly aware of the benefits of an outside play area for young children. However, based on the aforementioned concerns, I still object to this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask you just to stay there, please? Members, do you have any questions of a planning nature for the speaker? No, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Karras. And now Mr. Sheridan, please. And again, the same time constraints, Mr. Sheridan. That most used phrase, I think you're muted.
I think I'm good now.
Oh, good.
Right. Okay. Hi. I'm Mark Sheridan. I live in the property Sunray, which is the property in the north of the proposed play area. My concerns are similar to the previous gentleman, that the fence has been reduced from 2.5 meters down to 2. I understand it was based on, it felt that the 2 meters integrated into the character of the area. So, I think the character was lost when the hedge was ripped out. But that being said, I prefer an uglier 2.5 fence, which greatly reduces the noise better than an ugly 2 meter fence. And also, as mentioned in your, they could also use shrubs or fir trees or something to further improve the character of the area. With regard to the restricted use, on these by the officer, these are recommended times. Does that mean they can change them when they want, or does this mean they're stipulated hours now? That would be one of my questions. And also, I assume this is it purely just Monday to Friday, no weekends, and would there be no private hire or anything for this area? With regard to my garage, as it's called, or the outbuilding, this is my workshop hobby area. And as a retiree, I use this area on a daily basis, pretty much 40, 50 hours a week. So I'd obviously like to maintain the current peacefulness I have today. So that's one of my reasons for the increased 2.5 meter acoustic fencing. In addition, with the current fence that's there now, I'm not sure if it's quite 2 meters, but it's probably close to that. From my garage, I can look, because of the raised elevation, I can quite easily look into that area and see the kids. Not not that it's a problem that I don't want to watch the kids, but I don't think they should be viewed upon, and that's why I think the benefit would be to have the 2.5 fence. I got a little bit confused, or I tried reading it a few times to actually really understand which were going to be acoustic fencing, which wasn't, where they're going to be. I don't understand if it's why we don't have all of it done. That would be my main points, really. So I'm not against the play area. I think it's great for the kids, but I just don't want it to have a noise impact. So I'd much rather that we try and contain that noise with some soundproofing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And again, members, do you have any questions of a planning nature for the speaker? No, thank you very much.
Mr. Riccio, do you?
Sorry, Mr. Riccio, there was a question raised about the hours of the days of the week. Can you come back on that, please?
Yes, I can. Condition 5 restricts the hours of outdoor play in between 9:30 in the morning and 10, noon to 1, and 2:30 to 4:30.
Is that 7 days a week or 5 days a week?
That would be 5 days a week, and I appreciate the condition might need to be reworded to say exactly that.
Thank you on that one. Now, Ms. McGrath, you asked for this to be brought to the committee. Can I ask you to explain to the committee why you called this in, please?
So I called this in because I still think it's unneighbourly for the adjacent properties that are on either side and behind the actual nursery. This nursery runs 51 weeks of the year, with, and I don't think there's enough respite, even though it's like an hour on and an hour off. If it's being used constantly in all weathers, with the noise of it, the sound travels. And even still, with like 5 children shorter than the 25 down to 20, I still think it'd be a noise impact on all the residents in the village. So I've called it in.
Thank you very much indeed. Do I see Councillor Wheeler? Did you want to comment at this point, or do you want to come in later?
Happy to come in later, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are there any comments or questions on Councillor Tapper?
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that the first speaker commented about the sound levels that were expected to be emanating from this property, and mentioned that it was estimated at 65 decibels. And I'm sure a lot of us actually were wondering, well, what exactly is 65 decibels? So I have actually looked it up, and 65 decibels turns out to be the top end of the range for what is described as normal conversation. I hardly think, therefore, that by that definition, 65 decibels is an ear-shattering noise that will disturb the presence of anybody, even remotely, in the area. I just thought maybe councillors ought to be aware of exactly what that meant. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tapper, I would have looked to you for that information, to be honest, knowing that you would have it at your fingertips. Thank you for that. Councillor Alloway.
I don't know, this is just an observation really, but if you think of 20 children in the garden next to you, that's not going to be normal conversation levels, because I've got 5 children in the garden next to me, and it is quite invasive sometimes when they're all having fun. Not to stop them having fun, but is this particularly the right place for such a play area? And with the conditions, how would they be enforced? The numbers and the hours that have been operating, please. Patricia?
So in order to, I mean, the conditions are enforceable. You can enforce the conditions, for example, by undertaking spot checks and actually counting the number of children that are in the garden at one time. And also if the time that they're there ties up with the time that's conditioned.
Thank you. Councillor White?
May I ask the officer, the height of 2.5 metres has been mooted by our speakers, but the condition is a 2 metre. Can you tell me why you decided on a 2 metre and not 2.5?
So the previous application, as detailed in, just bear with me. Previous application is detailed in the paragraph 4.4 of the officer's report. The conditions that were used to prepare the noise report were slightly different. It assumed that the children would be constantly in the playground and during the whole time. So now, by reducing the time that the children are there, and also the number of children, there wouldn't be a need to provide such a high fence as the 2.5.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler, I'm going to ask you to come in. Are you ready to come in now, Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Chair. That was great.
Can I just stop? I'm going to be brave and just stop you before you start and say, normally you are obviously a member of this committee and as Vice Chairman. However, you can't be with us today, but you will be addressing the committee, but you will not have a vote in the final deliberations. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much, and thank you for understanding that. I actually don't see any difference other than 0.5 metre between this application and the last application. What has been removed is the objection to the natural character of the lane, and that's because the fence, the natural hedge that was there originally, I understand has largely been removed. So that removes that objection. Somebody probably slightly less myself may probably in order to make it less likely and to give us less grounds for refusal. However, the impact of that fence along that lane is still not very neighbourly, and it's still not in keeping within that particular character area of that small lane. This is not the only application that we've heard within this chamber, and I appreciate that each application must be considered on its own merit before I'm reminded of that fact. But this isn't the only application that we've heard in this area about noise generating as a result of a children's a nursery play area in what is essentially a residential garden and a very residential area. For members of the committee that are not familiar with Windlesham, this particular area of Windlesham is just as you lift out of the main village. It's on a slight incline, which means that the land is slightly higher than other areas, and just which is at west of that site, we've got a number of elderly care residential areas in the centre of the village. So it's not a noisy hub. And I'll remind members about the effect noise, which isn't constant. So Councillor Tapper referred to an ambient background noise, and an ambient background noise is not something that is really intrusive for neighbours. But a child's changing pitch of noise, particularly when you go from quiet to noisy to quiet to noisy, actually has much greater impact because it's the effect of that noise change within this area. Should the committee members that can vote be minded to approve this application, which I strongly hope that they don't, and I hope that they reasonable point that were concerned to the previous app. Sorry, I was just saying I would hope that the members could refer to the previous application and the reason for refusal if they are minded to refuse. If they are minded to approve this application, then I would request that the noise fence goes all the way round, including the substation, that is within the back garden or the back area in order to reduce the impact of the noise. I would ask that the hours are further restricted to a period of time in the morning, mid-morning, and a period of time in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, so that residents can enjoy morning peace and lunchtime peace for those people that work from home. And in addition to that, I would be minded to remind the Chamber of what we are doing to our enforcement officers, because this is only bearable by enforcement. And the conditions are there. I appreciate that they are there and they can be enforced. But I would like to remind all of the members present just how difficult it is to enforce conditions, and therefore the risk that they are putting upon the very unneighbourly nature of this application. Thank you very much for letting me speak as the ward councillor on this occasion.
Not at all. Thank you for that. I've written down 2 points here, members, picking up one from Councillor Wheeler about the noise attenuation around the site, the area, whatever you want to call it. And the other one I've written down here is just to clarify the days of the week that the children will be allowed out. And I think that should be, if the committee is minded to grant, that should be in one of the, it should be part of condition 5. Mr. Rito, can you come back on those 2 points, please?
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the fence around the substation, environmental health did not raise any issues with the fence as suggested by the applicant. But having said this, condition 3 does require the applicant to provide us with a scheme that would show the location of the of that fence. So I can't see if members wish. I think in my view it would be reasonable to ask for the fence to cover the substation as well, and the same with the hours of operation. We could potentially drop the lunchtime period and reword the condition to make it clear that it's just during weekdays.
Thank you on that. Members? Councillor McGrath?
I'll just ask as well if it could be recommended that if they do put the fence all the way round, even the substation, we have the actual boundary hedge put back in, just so it's covered as it was before, please, to be kept in line with the lane as it was.
Mr. Riccio?
Condition 6 does require the provision of a landscape scheme. So we would expect to see some planting in front of that fence to help it integrate it with the character of School Lane.
Yep, that is on condition 6 there, but Mr. Point made well made. Thank you for that.
Members, we have an officer recommendation with the one amendment on that condition 5 to clarify the dates of the week. Is there a close and a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Perry, Councillor Betton.
Can I check that also?
Well, that's on the condition 3. That's part of the condition 3 there.
Just to clarify, we can amend that word, that condition, because it relates back to the noise assessment at the moment, which doesn't actually show the extent of the fencing. So we will ensure it covers around the substation as well.
Conformity?
No, I think we should actually amend the condition to include that in.
Okay, thank you. Members, the recommendation, all those in agreement with the officer recommendation?
Sorry, just before we continue, can I just clarify that on condition 5, in terms of the outdoor play area, we're not actually asking for a change in the hours. Are we taking out any of those hours or we're keeping it as it is?
My understanding is we're keeping it as it is, but it's the days of the week that will be included in that.
Thank you.
Right, members. Councillor McGrath?
I thought it was going to, with obviously Patricia saying it was sort of like a morning session and an afternoon session and not a middle session. So people would have more of a respite.
Is that the will of this committee? I need a separate proposal. At the moment, the hours are as stated, but 5 days a week. If the committee want that, I will need somebody to propose that amendment. You wish to propose the amendment, Councillor Gordon? Is there a supporter for that amendment? Right, we have,
Right, can we just then satisfy ourselves? What hours are you looking for?
for the hours of outdoor play.
So we would also remove the noon to 1 o'clock. So the hours of outdoor play are 9:30 to 10:30 and 2:30 to 4:30.
So you want to take out the noon till 1 o'clock? You support that? Members, I'll deal with that one separately. We have a, yes, Councillor Alloway.
Sorry, Chair, just one other thing. This 65 dBA normal conversation level noise, is that part of the checks for the enforcement?
It is one of the conditions that are set out on the recommendations. It is condition 3 on the paper. Right, can I deal with firstly, please, the hours, deleting the noon till that 1 hour in the middle of the day. Are the committee in favour of that amendment? Five. Those against? Right, that amendment has been lost. So we come back to the original proposal with the amendment. We're altering the item on paragraph 3, which Mr. Partington has talked about, and the days of the week, be 5 days a week. We have that proposed and seconded. Can I have, please, members in favour of that proposal?
Voting in favour of the officer's recommendation to grant, together with those amendments, councillors Barnett, Betton, Gordon, Beach, Morley, Perry, Rataram, Skipper, Tapper, and Whitcroft and Hawkins. Councillor Betton, did I not read out your name? Oh, okay, Councillor Betton as well.
Against?
Voting against the officer's recommendation as amended, councillors Alloway, McGrath and White.
Abstentions? I don't think there are any. I'm trying to keep my maths going.
Last minute. Be like that, and that should 1, 2, and then White. So that should be 3, and that should be 11 if you want to count up.
So does the fence stay at 2 meters or is it going to be 2.5?
There's 2 meters.
Why was that? That wasn't voted on, was it?
Yeah, it's the 2 meters as per the officer's report. It was voted on and passed. And that has been passed 11 votes to 3 with no abstentions. So thank you very much on that one, members. Now on to item number 2 on page 23, which is 28 Hillsborough Park. Declarations. I called this item in and I will come to my reasons for calling it in due course. Are there any? Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this planning application does fall within my ward. I have been in conversation with one of the neighbours who has explained their concerns to me with regard to this application, but I remain of an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations? No. Now this is Miss Turney. Now Miss Turney is this is her first time presenting to this committee, so I'll give you all the usual health warning. Just play nicely, and then it is over to you, Miss Turney.
Lovely, thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So first of all, I'd want to draw your attention to the update. Another letter of objection has been received and a correction on the agenda. The proposed application is at 28 Hillsborough Park, Camberley. The officer's recommendations for approval subject to the conditions set out within the report. The proposed application is for a 2-storey rear extension of part single, part 2-storey side extension. So as you can see up on the screen, the application site, and that is the existing footprint of the dwelling. So the image on the right shows the urban western area character area. The site falls within the wooded hills character area, and that's the yellow outline that you can see there. So as mentioned within the report, the plot is larger compared to the surrounding properties, significantly set back from the highway, and is not overly visible from the street scene. The application dwelling itself is a different style and design to the neighbouring properties, which are of a more modern design. The host dwelling reflects a mock Tudor style and is of pale red brick. So this is the southern elevation, which partly faces the highway. So the proposed extension on this elevation would mimic the existing gable and bay window design to this southern elevation. Between the gables is a new glazed canopy. It's noted that the first floor window would be larger compared to the existing. So then looking at the western elevation, can you yes, it's the big one. So on this one there, then you can see on the right hand side of the drawing elevation is the bay window that we could see in the first slide, and the gable, and then there's the single story element, which is set back from the 2-storey, which you'll be able to see better when I show the floor plans. So this would be the eastern element. So this is it's the image that you can see, the eastern elevation and the northern elevation. So this is the eastern elevation along this side here, and this is the northern elevation here. So this section of the extension would infill the gap that's essentially here. So again, that would extend out from the ridge, mimicking the 2 gable projections at the rear, and it would have a grey curtain wall. So here is the block plan. So you've got the comparison of the existing and the proposed, and then you've got the existing, the proposed ground floor and first floor plans. This is where you can see that single story element is slightly set back from the 2-storey part here. So the extensions would increase the size of the dwelling. The officer's opinion is that the extensions have been designed in a consistent form and scale and architectural style. Overall, the proposed appearance of the dwelling would retain the pitched roof and would retain extensive space around the building, and the level of spaciousness within the plot would be retained that would comply with policy. So if we move on then to looking at the impact on the neighbours. So neighbours have raised concern, and during the site visit, I did visit both the neighbouring gardens of properties 30, 32 and 26 Hillsborough Park. So here's a couple of photos from the rear garden of number 26, and I've highlighted as well, which you can see in yellow, which garden they are taken from. The rear garden of this neighbour is approximately 15 metres deep, and overall the angle and distance of the proposal would not result in detrimental overlooking to their rear garden. And then if we look toward, this is looking at the neighbour at number 30. So again, you can see the highlighted yellow, which garden that photo is taken in. So again, this neighbour also has a garden in excess of 15 metres. The element closest to this neighbour, the neighbour to the north of 30 is 32, and their closest part of the boundary is a single-storey element. So that's small section there against the boundary with this neighbour, and then the element that's closest to the neighbour at number 32 is the 2-storey element. So therefore, due to the design and separation distance, the resulting development wouldn't have an adverse impact on the amount of sunlight or daylight that these neighbouring properties would receive, nor would they appear overbearing from the gardens. There are additional windows within the eastern elevation, but these would not directly look towards the neighbour at 237 Upper Chobham Road. So that's actually the neighbour. It's on here. Overall, the officers consider that the proposal would be acceptable and is recommended for approval. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, apologies. I suppose I really ought to have said that I called this in as at the request of one of the neighbours who I know as an acquaintance, but nothing more than that. And I called it in reflecting concerns on bulk, mass, overbearing of the completed development and out of keeping with the surrounding area. Those are the reasons. Members, Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am very familiar with this property. It is unique in this area in that it is almost invisible from the road. As you can see, if you look at page 31, which is the coloured in map of the area. The frontage onto Hillsborough Drive is actually walled, hedged and enclosed by an electronic gate of quite significant height. You almost have to stand on tiptoes to be able to actually see through the grating to be able to see the property itself. So, as I say, it is invisible really to the road. And to an extent only visible to the neighbouring properties. I would take some exception with the comment about this being a greater mass. If you look at the plan here, you will see that number 28 is substantially smaller at the moment to number 30, and also 237, and even more so, although it's not numbered, next to 237 Upper Chobham Road, 239 Upper Chobham Road, which has substantially greater mass than the current property. The proposed extensions, as I see them to this particular property, really brings them only onto a par with what is there, and will still remain smaller than a number of neighbouring properties immediately adjacent to this property. So the character as such being changed really doesn't impact anybody at all. Other than the proposers of the planning application. It's their property, and basically they are really the only people who are actually going to see the design. The property to the other properties surrounding it would be right at the end of their gardens, behind their fences, behind their hedges. So I don't really see that this planning application has any potential impact on the change of character to the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tapper. Members, any other comments? No. We have an officer recommendation to approve. Is there a proposal and a second on that one? Councillor Whitcroft, Councillor Tapper. All those in favour of the officer recommendation?
Voting in favour of the officer's recommendation, Councillors Alloway, Barnett. Unanimous. Unanimous. Oh, okay. Councillors Alloway, Barnett, Beach, Morley, Perry, Ratteram, Betton, Gordon, Skipper, Tapper, McGrath, Whitcroft and White. Sorry, I wasn't.
Against?
Against, Councillor Edward Hawkins.
Abstain? Members, that's been carried 13 votes to 1. Thank you. Now on to item 3 on page 47. 6 Mount Pleasant Close Lightwater. Decorations on this note. It's Mr. Rissio again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The planning application at 6 Mount Pleasant Close seeks consent to convert the existing dwelling in and its annex into 2 residential units. The application site, which you can see here outlined in red, lies within a residential area in Lightwater Village.
Sorry, Patricia, we can't see your slides.
Just bear with me. Let me try again sharing this. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's better.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
you.
you. Let me just put this. Okay. So restarting. The planning application at number 6, Mount Pleasant Close, seeks consent to convert the existing dwelling and its annex into 2 residential units. The application site, which you can see here outlined in red, lies within a residential area in Lightwater. On the same side of the road as the application side, the dwellings to the west are bungalows and the properties to the east are 2-story dwellings linked by their garages. Directly opposite the site, there are 2-story houses. This application follows 3 previously refused applications, 2 of which were subsequently dismissed at appeal. The block plan for the 2016 application is shown here on the left-hand side. This application was for the erection of a detached dwelling, and it was considered that the proposal had limited gaps to the side boundaries, which created a cramped appearance that failed to respect the pattern of spacing within the road. This would be exacerbated by opening up the plot's frontage to accommodate parking. In 2017, there was another refused application, and you can see the block plan in the middle. This application was also for a detached dwelling, which was considered to result in a visually cramped development that did not respect the spaciousness of the road. The inspector further noted that the plot width would be significantly narrower than the other ones that surround the site. The loss of the front boundary treatment and the laying of the driveway into gravel for parking purposes was also raised as an issue with that proposal. The 2020 application, which is shown on the right-hand side, would introduce the semi-detached dwelling, and it was considered to result in a narrow plot that would appear out of context with the immediate surroundings. The lack of front boundary treatment, again for parking, and the position of the driveway would appear at odds with the other properties within the road. Here you can see the front elevations for the previously refused applications in 2016, 2017, and the latest one in 2020. This image shows the block plan, which is now proposed, and the proposal comprises subdividing the plot in a similar fashion to the previous applications. It's noted that the applicant has already removed part of the boundary treatment here, and also this area is now laid to gravel. As such, using the annex as an independent dwelling would not result in a material change to the visual aspect of the property as seen from the road. In dismissing the 2017 appeal, the inspector, in fact, accepting that the dwelling and the annex could be occupied independently. Here you can see the existing and the proposed front elevations, and they would be identical. This is a site photo of the application site, where you can see that the wall has already been removed and the driveway has been laid to gravel. The applicant has provided a visibilities place, which you can see here on the left-hand side, and I apologize for the quality of the image. County Highways has been consulted on the proposal and is satisfied that it would not be detrimental to highway safety. The 2 parking spaces would also be considered to standard. In summary, the development is considered acceptable in terms of its impact on the character of the area, residential amenity, and highway safety. However, the applicant has not entered in a legal agreement with the LPA, and in the absence of securing the financial contributions towards SANC and SAM, the proposal has failed to mitigate its impacts on the Thames Basin Heath SPA, and therefore is recommended for refusal on these grounds. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. There are no speakers or anything on this item. Members, do you have any comments or questions for the officers? Councillor Tapper?
Thank you, Chair. I get a feeling of deja vu here. Right? This has to be the 3rd time I've heard applications concerning this property, and the 3rd time I've heard the same statements made with regard to the width of the property which is being hived off or proposed to be hived off as being substantially slimmer than the properties around. And I will make the same comment now that I made previously, not 25 metres away on the opposite side of the road, which you can say on page 67 of your agenda, which is once again the coloured map. You will see between 7 and 9A, I presume it's 7A, a property which is a division of that particular property, 7, where the property width is virtually identical to what is being proposed here. Not only that, but 9A next to it, which appears to have been approved by our committee for similar treatment, is likewise virtually identical in width to the property as proposed in the planning application. So I think we really should dispose of this idea that there is some sort of objection with regard to the property being cramped, no more cramped than other properties within the spitting distance of the one we're talking about. In the past, you've probably known that I have gone against the committee and I have disagreed with the officer's decision. I would have been prepared to do the same thing here again. However, the failure of the applicant to enter into the agreement, which is part of this planning application, does, in my mind, feel that he's stuck his foot in it in terms of trying to get approval for this application. And for that reason and that reason alone, I will be voting to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tapper. That is the recommendation for refusal on the report, that fact. Members, are there any other, I don't know if Councillor Wheeler is still there, if she wants to comment, or Councillor Tedder, not indicating they wish to speak, no. Members, there is an officer recommendation to refuse. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for this? Councillor White, Councillor Tapper, all those in agreement with the recommendation to refuse?
Voting in favour of the officer's recommendation to refuse, Councillors Alloway, Barnett, Gordon, Beach, Morley, Perry, Ratteram, Skipper, Tapper, McGrath, Whitcroft, Wheeler and Hawkins.
Against?
Voting against the officer's recommendation to refuse, Councillor Cliff Betton.
That, members, is carried 13. Oh, sorry, Councillor White.
Sorry, Councillor White. Yeah, sorry, you were voting in favour of the officer's recommendation to refuse. Thanks.
I must admit, I thought your name had been read out. I'm obviously hearing things. Yes, I'll borrow Councillor Tapper's earphones. That has been carried 13 votes to 1. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers. Thank you, everybody, for attending. The next meeting is the 15th of July. So if we wait until the YouTube has closed down and Councillor Tedder's finished her ice cream. Sorry, Pat, I couldn't resist it.